Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen and Jess. If you're standing at the back of the room, there are a couple of spots open right here in the front if you would like. Now, with that, let's build a solid foundation and dive into the basics of working with the agency with DARPA 101. Dr. Andy Detour, who is a program manager in DARPA's Defense Sciences Office, will be sharing an overview of DARPA's history, its role within the department, and the many ways you can collaborate with the agency. Over to you, Andy.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here. Just by a show of hands, how many in the audience are actively working on a DARPA project today? A minority. Good. That is good. What my intent here in the next 15 minutes is to give you a little bit of background on the history of the agency, why DARPA exists, and what our mission is, and really set the tone, I guess, for the rest of the day on what it means to work with DARPA and the things that we expect from our performers. So I'll start with a history lesson. In October 1957, the former Soviet Union launched Sputnik. This was the first satellite to go into orbit. Caught the U.S. completely off guard. We didn't know that the Soviets had this technical capability. And it wasn't so much that it was just a 2-foot diameter, roughly 180-pound ball of metal passing over the continental U.S. The real concern was that it meant their rocket technology could send a ballistic missile to the mainland U.S. So imagine living in that time, seeing a 2-foot ball passing over your head with blinking lights and knowing that they can reach us, and how scary that time must have been. So 4 months later, President Eisenhower at the time started the Advanced Research Projects Agency, which is today DARPA. The goal, and by the way, the agency was started with a 3-page memo to Congress. And it happened just like that because it was urgent. It was urgently needed so that we never had a Sputnik moment again. You'll hear that term, Sputnik moment. DARPA's primary mission is to prevent strategic surprise like Sputnik from ever happening again. That's the defensive posture. There's an offensive side to this as well, which is to create strategic surprise, the new capabilities that our adversaries don't even know we have. Right? That's what DARPA is here for today. Now, the agency's different. It's not your run-of-the-mill government agency. And so I want to talk about the 3 ways that it's different. Its people, like me, have limited tenure. A lot of people don't know this. I'm a DARPA program manager. I've been at DARPA for 3 years. I have 1 year left. There's an expiration date on my badge, September 26th, 2026. They won't let me in the building after that, right? The point here is to keep the agency fresh, to keep new ideas and new people rotating through, all right, so that we never get stale or stagnant. We're always working on new and different things. What this means for you is that the DARPA you knew 2 years ago is not the DARPA today. Our directors change, our leadership changes, our program, everything changes constantly. And so you really need to be in lockstep with the current DARPA to know what it means to be DARPA. Our process, we don't have any labs, unfortunately, and it's not like, I'm telling the truth here. There are no labs in our 13th floor office building in Arlington, Virginia. It's a boring office building with just a bunch of computers. All of the cool stuff, all the good work happens at places like this, right? Where our performer base does the experiments, runs the simulations. And so that's a good thing, right? Because it keeps us disconnected from the bench. We are a funding agency. And so we rely on people like you to execute the great ideas. And then on culture, the one I'll just hit on here is risk tolerant. I actually think this slide should be updated because it's not just about being tolerant. DARPA requires it. To sell a program through DARPA, and I've done it successfully now a few times, you have to have risk, right? The point of a DARPA program is to move people from disbelief to doubt. That is what we aim to do. And so the idea should sound crazy. When you go to other government agencies or other funding sources, AFRL, ONR, NIST, NSF, and you pitch an idea, the program managers or program directors there should think you're crazy. That's when you know you have a DARPA idea. That's DARPA's mission in the S&T ecosystem. If we don't do it, nobody else will, right? So there's a lot of buzzwords on this slide, which kind of bothers me, but I want to talk about what they mean. So you see these things: breakthroughs, paradigm shifting, disruptive, massively accelerating. What does that all mean? Because it's easy to just say these things like, what does it mean to be disruptive? Well, companies, so I come from an industrial background, so I'll just use that as an analogy. We have technology roadmaps. As a function of time, looking out 5-10 years, here are the things I'm going to innovate on so that I can stay ahead in the market. If you're working on a DARPA program, it's not necessarily a technology that will move you up your technology roadmap. It will make your technology roadmap irrelevant. The axes on the roadmap, whatever they are, will change because of the technology that you're working on. That's true disruption. I'll tell a story. It hit me about 9 months into my tenure at DARPA, when I really understood just how crazy the agency is and the advanced technology we work on. We were reviewing abstracts for an in-space manufacturing program. So right off the rip, pretty advanced stuff. And there was an abstract from a performer that was talking about a new technology to harvest regolith from the surface of the moon and turn it into a structural material so that you could use it to build, an ecosystem on the moon or in space. And after we did our analysis, we looked at the state of the art. We had conversations with experts in the area. We came to the conclusion that project was beyond the stage where DARPA funding was appropriate, meaning it was not risky enough. It was not a new enough idea. I had to stop and think to myself, like, this is insane, right? A project about harvesting regolith on the moon and creating structures out of it wasn't DARPA hard. All right, it's already being done. There are small companies that are doing this. There are other agencies funding this stuff. It's beyond DARPA. So this is a question that we get when we go to what's called Tech Council at DARPA, which is the process by which a program manager like myself has to sell a program internally to come out so you all can see it. There's this question, why DARPA? And this is an easy question to ask, a hard one to answer. What it means is to think of it in like the reverse. If DARPA does nothing, will this technology eventually get there? Are others already working it? AI is an area right now that's really tough from a DARPA perspective because there's so much innovation going on, right? It various companies and small businesses and academia. It's tough to get an AI program through DARPA today because it's almost like AI is in the past from DARPA's lens. And so what's really new there? What's going to change the axes on the roadmap of AI? Those are the kind of things that DARPA would be interested in exploring. All right. So you got to think big for DARPA, but more tactically, how is DARPA organized? This slide's a little bit of an eye-watering chart, but the point is there are 6 offices at DARPA that span everything from biological technologies, which is BTO, microsystems, so think computer chips and hardware and software, which is MTO, the Microsystems Technology Office, the Information Innovation Office, I2O, the Strategic Technology and the Tactical Technology Office, and the Defense Science Office. These offices are important pillars of the agency, but what really matters is your new ideas, right? I recommend, like, if you're coming up with a new idea, you probably want to figure out what office you align with, and DARPA Connect's a great resource for this. You'll be able to see the thrust areas for each office. They publish these and update these constantly. Just know that there are 6 offices, but they are not silos in the agency. We are all program managers like myself, are all friends. There's crosstalk. We know each other. A program manager like myself in DSO, I can go pitch a program in STO or TTO. There is no barriers. There's no boundaries. But we are organized in this way. It's important to know that structure. Greatest hits. So this is sort of looking back in time to know what a DARPA project could consist of. You can see here. I'm not going to walk through the whole thing, but the timing on some of these is interesting. And so if you look at stealth technology, for example, Darpa was working on that in the 70s, the early 70s, and even before that. With self-driving cars, right? We were working on self-driving cars at the turn of the century. The technologies that DARPA works on don't really come into the public eye usually until a decade or two after. And so it's really interesting actually to be at DARPA and see what's happening in the building, and a lot of it is classified, but a lot of it is unclassified. Just the ideas and the forward vision that happens in the agency. So put yourself today in the 2030s and try to project forward. What is the next breakthrough? What is the next paradigm shifting technology? It's really, really hard to do that. I mean, new ideas, truly new ideas that are in the spirit of DARPA are rare. But what we're going to go through today hopefully will help you understand what we're expecting, understand how to communicate with us, and how to work with us. Lots of ways to work with us. This chart it really breaks down all of the opportunities to get into the DARPA ecosystem. It's not just about programs that come out through a broad agency announcement. That is only one vehicle by which DARPA can fund your research. There's a range of things. I'm not going to read them all because we're going to hit on most of them today in other sessions. But the high-level point here as an introduction is don't really worry logistically right now about all the different ways you can connect into DARPA. You need to be aware of them. But at the heart of it, what matters is your good idea, right? Your new idea. And a program manager and the DARPA Connect personnel and other support staff in this room can help you navigate this pretty complex roadmap to get into DARPA. But we do this intentionally, right? Because we don't want to miss out on any new ideas. And so we want to make it as easy as possible to get in through as many angles and doors as possible. So that's the point of this chart. Lots of ways to interact with DARPA. And again, you'll hear more about that throughout the day.